So what's going on guys, Kates here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best Diablo 4 tier list in 2023. So I and few of my YouTuber friends talked with few early access testers and together we created this tier list. Overall the game at the release will have 5 classes: the Barbarian, Sorcerer, Rogue, Druid and the Necromancer. So if you wanna know what is the best class and what each class strengths and weaknesses are, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the first class, which is the Barbarian, and we will put him right in the S tier. So the Barbarian class is your typical melee bruiser that is meant for players who wish to deal massive damage, but mainly close range, while being able to switch from one weapon type to the next one. The Barbarian is much more physical damage oriented class, and is pretty straightforward when it comes to offensive and defensive attacks, due to his own class mechanic, which is known as the Arsenal system. The Barbarian can equip and swap about 4 weapons at a time, which means that you will have a very unique playstyle customization. These weapons of course include the main hand, the offhand, bludgeoning and slashing. Doing this will allow you to freely assign specific equipment to certain skills, based on your build. So for example, the bash will let you stun targets, and therefore is well suited for a bludgeoning weapon. But if you wish to increase this ability's stun duration even more, then you should opt in to switch to a two-handed weapon. It's also worth noting that upon the skill's activation, you will instantly equip the best weapon in your loadout. Furthermore, every weapon that the Barbarian uses has a corresponding expertise that you will level up with each rank. So for example, if you want to boost your critical strike chance, then you will want to wield a one-handed axe. Because of this system, I highly recommend for all players to collect bunch of weapons, in order to take the advantage of this class build diversity and item progression. Then in terms of stats, you mainly want to invest into the strength, health regeneration and dexterity to increase the chance of landing a critical hit. So overall, if you're looking for a powerful melee class that can use multiple weapons and will be very strong in early and endgame content, then this is the class for you. So then for the next class we have the Rogue, aka your Demon Hunter, and we will put him right next to the Barbarian. So the Rogue is your stealthy assassin class that has the highest single target damage in the game and has a very fast movement speed as well. But this class is also known to be more of a glass cannon. Unlike the Barbarian, the Rogue can quickly switch between melee and ranged weapons, such as daggers, swords and bows. Although at the start bows will not do that much damage, but they will allow you to stay at a safer distance when fighting against harder enemies. I would say that you can think of the Rogue as a combination of the Diablo 2 and Diablo Immortal Demon Hunter class. So then your primary stats for this class are Dexterity, to amplify your skill damage and improve dodge, then Strength to enhance your damage, and Health to increase your survivability. The Rogue's unique mechanic is known as the talent specializations, which are divided into combo points, inner sight and preparation, and all of them have their unique quest line. Although there hasn't been any information yet if you can activate all 3 specializations simultaneously or if they can only be used one at a time. Additionally, the 3rd specialization hasn't been tested by anyone because it only becomes available around reaching level 30, and the max level for the beta and most early access playthroughs was only level 20 or 25. Then as far as the 2nd talent goes, the combo points are accumulated by activating basic rogue skills, which then you will be able to consume with core skills to trigger additional effects. Meanwhile, Inner Sight will allow you to fill up a gauge by attacking marked enemies. Doing this will allow you to utilize the unlimited energy for a brief period, and this will become very powerful especially against bosses. And the Rogue's versatility doesn't end here, because he can buff up other attacks with specific effects, such as poison, shadow and etc. And these are usually applied to core skills and abilities that deal damage against multiple enemies and much more. So overall, if you want to be that assassin type of player with the highest single target damage and playstyle where you can switch between melee and ranged combat, then this is the class for you. So then moving over to the next class, which is the Sorcerer, and he gets to be placed right in the A tier. So the Sorcerer is your typical mage class that has a high risk and high reward type of playstyle, and although they're very fragile, they can deal massive amounts of damage by casting fire, ice and even lightning spells. Fire spell synergizes very well with burning status effect to inflict damage over time, but beyond this, they won't provide you with much utility besides the raw damage. But on the other hand, the ice spells will do less damage, but give you more utility such as freezing or slower movement speed. So the Sorcerer has a variety of skills that will either way burn or completely freeze your enemies, making this class very useful in group content and against bosses. Then not only you will slow them down, but you can potentially freeze them in one place if you apply enough stacks. And then lastly we have the lightning spells, that are well balanced in terms of dealing a decent amount of damage and controlling encounters to your advantage. So for example, we have one ability that will attack the enemy by using the crackling energy, which will leave behind itself a ball of energy that either way will inflict damage against enemies or replenish your own mana. Then when it comes to stats, you will want to allocate points into intelligence to boost the damage of your spells, then into dexterity to improve the speed of your mana recovery, and then lastly the willpower to improve your critical chance and much more. The Sorcerer special class mechanic is called the enchantment system, that will change how a skill works. So in total there are several active abilities with dedicated enhancement slots, and if you decide to place a skill in the enhancement slot, then it can no longer be activated, but instead it will transform into a secondary passive bonus. So for example, if you use the meteor skill to blast multiple targets with heavy fire, then at the same time, because of the bonus, we will be able to set the ground on fire and much more. So if you are looking for a typical mage class that has very high AoE damage but is very squishy and only plays from range, then this is the class for you. So then for one of the last classes we have the Necromancer, who gets to be placed right in the S tier. So Necromancer in the endgame has a strong AoE and crowd control abilities, as well as summons, that lets him do a bunch of damage or become a support player. This class is basically really good at almost all roles. The same as with Barbarian and Rogue, he will be able to use a bunch of weapons such as swords, daggers and wands, and more importantly scythes, which only they can use. Most of you will be very familiar with this class if you played the Diablo Immortal Necromancer. Then another useful resource is the corpse, which are created from the remains of fallen enemies or other spell effects. So when you kill a monster, they will drop a corpse, which then you can use to activate or buff up your skill damage. Overall, the Necromancer has 4 distinct skills called the Bone Prison, Darkness, Blood Surge and the Army. Bone Prison primarily focuses on dealing physical damage while consuming the essence resource. This skill can hit multiple enemies and is usually used together with other offensive skills. Then the next one is the Darkness skill that makes use of dealing damage over time, making this the ideal choice for those who intend to curse their enemies by dealing damage over time. Then the next one is the Blood skill, which allows the Necromancer to become a vampire that will restore his life for every single hit that he lands on the enemy. Then another fun spell is the Blood Surge, which not only absorbs the health of the enemy, but also he can gain huge strength. And then last but not the least we have the Army, which lets you summon skeletons back to life to fight by your side. As far as the Necromancer's unique class mechanic goes, it's called the Book of Dead. This will let you further customize your Undead Army skill, so you will be able to choose between the Skeleton Warriors, Skeleton Magers and even the Golems. So for example, you can select and customize your own minions. The Skeleton Warriors can become bruisers who deal great damage, but at the expense of having lower HP. Or then we have a Golem that is a great defender, but are way more tankier than the skeletons. What's more is that you can choose to sacrifice a specific minion to gain a permanent buff to further improve your build and much more. So if you're looking for a powerful class that is basically the jack of all trades, and in other Diablo games the best PvE class, then this is the one for you. And then for the last and final class we have the Druid, which gets to be placed in the A tier. So this is one of the more unique classes that hasn't been seen since Diablo 2 and in many other games. The Druid's main ability is to change his physical form from a human to a bear or even a werewolf. But don't forget that your new form will only last for a short duration, until you use a different type of skill. Moreover, this class will also use magic, except that unlike the Sorcerer, he will specialize in casting earth and storm spells. So for example, if you are the Druid, then you can use a Crashing Blow skill that will damage a target by a certain percentage of his entire health. Unlike the Diablo 2, the Diablo 4 Druids have companions that do not need to be summoned, but will automatically appear when you're in combat. However, you will be able to use unique companion skills to deal more pet damage. In terms of the Druid's performance compared to other classes, The Druid is another jack of all trades type of character that this time will focus more on supporting skills, but can as well do pretty good damage but only having longer cooldowns. It hasn't been revealed how many spirit types are available, but each one of them will grant up to 6 offensive and defensive passive effects and much more. So if you're looking to play not the most powerful class, but that has one of the most unique playstyles that hasn't been seen in many games, but if you're a good player, then you can still compete against the rest of the classes, or just use it for the group content, then this is the one for you. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback or other good Diablo 4 classes or guides that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in my next video, so take it easy, peace.